If you turned on TV as a kid in the late 90s or early 2000s, there was a genuine chance you would see something that made you question who had approved it. 3 teenagers run increasingly unethical scams just to buy jawbreakers and shows that look like this. And somehow this wasn't some underground indie movement. This was mainstream, primetime after-school TV.
Ed, what are you doing in my bed?
I can't sleep, Eddie. I keep thinking, how can my feet smell if they don't have a nose?
You'd get home, turn on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, watch a floating head terrify a dog for 11 minutes, and then ask your parents to get cereal. And that's business as usual. Beyond the art style, the shows were willing to leave you feeling confused, disgusted, or slightly unsettled. The weirdness was built into the ideas themselves, and that becomes important when we compare them with what came next. If you revisit Ed, and Eddy or early Spongebob, one thing becomes clear. The crooked lines, distorted faces, and uncomfortable close-ups were deliberate. The art wasn't unsightly by accident, it was by design. When everything's smooth, symmetrical, and polished, your brain quickly understands what it's looking at and moves on. But characters with crooked teeth, uneven eyes, and constantly vibrating outlines create visual friction. Psychologists call this the isolation effect. When one thing stands out from similar things around it, we're often more likely to remember it. Those distorted faces and unhinged close-ups created that kind of effect. The creators behind Rugrats deliberately avoided making the babies conventionally cute. They wanted them to look strange, and those dented heads and distorted proportions became part of the show's identity. Over on Cartoon Network, the designs of Ed, and Eddy had boiling lines, so the image wouldn't feel completely still. And then on shows like Spongebob, a character would mention something mildly unpleasant, and then suddenly the show would cut to something like this.
Oh, you look terrible, Spongebob!
Nobody asked for it. Subtle characters are realistic, but extreme, odd characters get remembered. These shows also trusted children with uncomfortable feelings. Bill and Mandy made death part of the joke, while Avatar dealt with war, grief, and trauma without pausing every few minutes to explain exactly how you're supposed to feel. While modern shows seem to make their emotional lessons very clear, this era of entertainment was often happier to leave you confused, unsettled, or unsure what the lesson was, assuming there even was one. And that may be why they stayed with us. But just as this style reached its peak, the entire landscape beneath it began to collapse. By the early 2010s, the place we got the entertainment moved. YouTube, smartphones, and streaming meant people didn't have to wait until 4 o'clock for whatever Cartoon Network had decided to show them. With a more popular internet, they could search for exactly the kind of weirdness they wanted. As younger audiences moved, traditional kids' TV stopped being the center of their entertainment. At the same time, much of the content on TV started to evolve. In the 2000s, the premise itself was bizarre, but the shows could still be surprisingly patient. In other words, it gave you time to live inside it. For a lot of modern content, the idea itself might be simple, but the delivery is often optimized to hold attention. And as the internet started to become the new mainstream, the weirdness started appearing there. It created a strange trade-off. Kids gained access to more creativity than ever before, but they also lost the boundaries of the old TV sandbox. Cartoon Network could show you something disturbing, but it still had limits. The internet could show you almost anything. Brainrot and modern content can be equally unhinged, but it's often unhinged in the delivery with at least 10 things happening at once, because apparently one thing can no longer be trusted to hold our attention. There's a difference between an unhinged idea and an unhinged delivery designed to keep you watching. Not completely, of course. The internet has produced genuinely inventive animation, games, and stories. The strange ideas survived. They just stopped arriving through the same shared, carefully scheduled TV channels. Ironically, in trying to make children's TV completely safe, corporate media didn't eradicate weirdness. It just severed its own connection to it. And that leads us to the final thing we lost. Not the content itself, but the shared experience of watching it together. In the 2000s, TV was a shared cultural place. Because we were all bound to the same broadcast schedules, millions of kids sat in front of the same screen at 4:30 PM every afternoon. If Cartoon Network had an episode where a floating mummy demanded a magic slab, millions of kids shared the exact same nightmare. Today, we have access to far more entertainment. That variety isn't necessarily worse. In many ways, it gives young people more opportunities to find something that feels specifically made for them. But it also means there are fewer moments where an entire generation is watching the same strange thing at once. The shared fever dream has become a million personalized ones. And I'm not going to pretend nostalgia isn't a part of this. When you're 8, everything feels bigger. But as it turns out, no matter how many rounded corners you build into the modern world, the messy, strange and grotesque ideas will always be the ones that stay with us.